Welcome to Tales from Timber Creek, a place where stories flow like water in a mountain brook. Settle in, unwind, and let your mind wander. Here you'll find original stories told in a calm, soothing voice, paired with peaceful, rustic ambiance. Whether you're looking to relax after a long day or drift off to sleep, this channel offers a tranquil retreat from the noise of everyday life. So take a deep breath, relax, and stay a while. The keeper of the quiet light. At the edge of a vast and wandering forest, where the trees grew tall and the paths seemed to change with the seasons, there stood a small lantern shop. It was easy to miss. There was no sign, no grand display, no voice calling out to passing travelers, just a narrow wooden building with a single window that glowed faintly each evening as the sun began to fade. Inside lived a man named Samuel. Samuel was not known as a merchant, though he sold things. He was not known as an inventor, but he created things. And he was not known as a guide, though many who met him found their way because of him. Samuel made lanterns, but not ordinary lanterns. Each one was different. Some were tall and slender, others were round and sturdy. Some carried intricate carvings of mountains, rivers, and animals, while others were plain and simple. But every lantern shared one thing in common. When lit, they gave off a soft, steady glow. Not too bright, not too dim, just enough to see by without disturbing the dark. Travelers who entered his shop often did so by chance. They would be on their way somewhere else, through the forest, toward a distant town, or simply wandering without a clear direction. But something about that small, glowing window would draw them in. And once inside, they would always ask the same question: how much for a lantern? Samuel would look at them carefully, not their clothes, not their belongings, but their eyes. And after a moment, he would say, "Well, that depends. Where are you going?" Some travelers would laugh. "What does that matter?" they'd reply. "A lantern is a lantern." Samuel would shake his head gently. "No," he would say, "a lantern is a companion, and not every light is meant for every path." This confused most people. Some grew impatient, others were amused, but a few stayed. Those who stayed would sit with Samuel while he worked. They would watch as he shaped thin strips of wood, bending them slowly, carefully, as though forcing them would break something unseen. They would listen to the quiet scrape of tools, the soft hum of a flame, and the occasional crackle of oil meeting the wick. And after some time, Samuel would begin to ask questions. Not many, just enough. Do you walk alone? Are you afraid of the dark? Do you need to see far or simply see enough? The answers didn't seem important at first, but Samuel listened as though they were. And when the time came, he would choose a lantern. Not the most ornate, not the most expensive, but the one that seemed to belong to that traveler. "This is yours," he would say. "And how much do I owe you?" they would ask. Samuel would smile faintly. "Just take it," he would reply. "But promise me one thing." "What's that?" "When the light feels small, don't assume it's failing. Sometimes it's just asking you to slow down." Many travelers left puzzled. Some never thought about his words again, but others remembered. The forest beyond Samuel's shop was known for its shifting paths. Trails that seemed clear by day would twist and vanish by night. Familiar landmarks would appear unfamiliar in the dark, and the deeper one went, the quieter it became. Not peaceful, but uncertain, as though the forest itself were watching and waiting. Those who traveled without light often hurried. They stumbled, they guessed at their direction, and more often than not, they lost their way. But those who carried Samuel's lanterns noticed something different. The light didn't reach far. It did not reveal the entire path ahead. It simply illuminated the next few steps. No more, no less. At first, this frustrated some travelers. "I can't see where I'm going," they would mutter. "I don't know what's ahead." But the longer they walked, the more they realized something strange. They didn't need to. Each step revealed the next. Each moment made space for another. And slowly, without realizing it, they stopped rushing. They began to listen to the sound of their footsteps, to the rhythm of their breath, to the quiet presence of the forest around them. And in that stillness, they found their way. Years passed. Stories about the lanterns began to spread, not loudly, not widely, but steadily. People spoke of a shop at the forest's edge, of a man who asked strange questions, of lanterns that didn't light the whole path, but somehow led you exactly where you needed to go. More travelers began to seek Samuel out. Some came with purpose, others came with desperation. A few arrived having heard just enough to believe, and each one was met the same way, with quiet attention, with careful listening, and with a lantern chosen not for what they wanted, but for what they needed. One evening, as the sky dimmed and the first stars began to appear, a young woman entered the shop. She looked tired, not from walking, but something deeper. "I need your brightest lantern," she said immediately. Samuel looked up from his work. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Through the forest," she replied. "All the way through. I don't have time to wonder or guess. I need to see everything clearly." Samuel studied her for a moment. Then he turned, walked to a shelf, picked up a small, simple lantern. It was one of the plainest in the shop. "This one," he said, handing it to her. She stared at it. "This?" she said. "No, I said I need your brightest." "This is the one you need," Samuel replied calmly. She shook her head. "This barely lights anything." "It lights enough," Samuel said. "I don't want enough," she snapped. "I want certainty." Samuel didn't argue. He simply said, "Certainty is not something light can give you." The woman hesitated. Frustration flickered across her face, but something else was there too. Something quieter. She took the lantern. That night, as she entered the forest, at first she was exactly as she feared. The light seemed too small, the darkness too wide. Every shadow felt like a question she couldn't answer. She moved quickly, too quickly, and soon she stumbled. Not once, not twice, but enough to realize something wasn't working. She stopped, looked at the lantern, and remembered Samuel's words. When the light feels small, don't assume it's failing. She took a breath, slowed down, and tried again. This time she didn't look ahead. She looked where the light fell. One step, then another, then another. The forest didn't change, but her movement did. She stopped rushing, stopped forcing direction, stopped trying to see everything all at once. And gradually, something shifted. The path didn't become clearer, but she became steadier, more present, less afraid. Hours passed. At some point, without realizing when it happened, she stopped needing to see the end of the path. She trusted the next step, and for the first time in a long while, she felt calm. When she finally emerged from the forest, the sun was just beginning to rise. She turned back, not to measure how far she'd come, but to understand something she hadn't before. The forest hadn't been the obstacle. Her need to control it had been. Days later, she returned to Samuel's shop. He was there, working quietly as always. She placed the lantern on the table. "I think I understand now," she said. Samuel looked up, a faint smile forming. "Do you?" he asked. She nodded. "It was never about seeing the whole path," she said. "It was about learning how to walk it." Samuel said nothing. He didn't need to. From that day on, the stories about Samuel changed slightly. They no longer spoke of lanterns that guided the way. They spoke of something deeper, something harder to explain. That the light he gave people was never just about the path ahead. It was about the way they learned to move through the dark. And Samuel, he remained in his small shop at the edge of the forest, still building lanterns, asking quiet questions, and giving away light to those willing to carry it. You don't need to see the entire path to move forward. You only need enough light for the next step and the patience to trust where it leads.